Legend has it that the fate, life and death of all things in the world are governed by the altar of gods and the altar of demons, and a 400-year-long battle declared the fall of the altar of demons. From then on, the altar controlled the world and enslaved humans and demon races. Until that night, a young man emerged from the sky, carrying the hope of earthly life and killing the divine realm all the way, but no one knew his purpose, even if it means losing everything, even if it means carrying everything, even if it means never seeing her again, cut off the karma in this world, trample on this unjust path. When the dawn fades away in the moonlit night, waiting for the beauty of fate and dust, but never seeing the beautiful shadows under the flowers again. The youth has been waiting, and has also been waiting. Chapter 1. Crisis. The Disappearing Monster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the martial year of the Hongming era, there was a celestial anomaly and a struggle between heaven and earth. Outside the purple copper hall, the eldest son of the elder of the divine clan, Xingyu, led the various marshals of the divine clan to confront the demon clan. The demon king Yuan Chong was sealed and suppressed by the gods using the 4 symbols and 7 arrays at the foot of Mount Yute. The demon clan suffered a great defeat, and all remaining remnants of the party who still resisted were killed. Those who fled in panic were also killed, ending the more than 400-year struggle between gods and demons. The elder of the divine clan, Xing Hao, announced that the demon clan had been exterminated. From then on, the divine clan unified the 3 realms and ordered the heavenly cavalry general, Xing Luo, to issue an edict to rule the northern region under the rule of the Thunder Clan chief, Amuxi, and establish a kingdom called Wali Kingdom. The southern region was ruled by the Dragon Clan chief, Emperor Shi, and the country was named Jin Kingdom. And take the Longo River to Dofeng Mountain as the boundary. In order to save the Demon King ordered a group of demons to leave the mountain. From then on, ghosts and demons from all over the world rose up together, causing harm to the human world. They accumulated their vitality and sought the treasure of unlocking seals. Taoist priests from all walks of life also descended the mountain and stepped into this turbulent world. No one expected that a great war decades ago would give birth to a person who would change the world order. Stop, you wicked beast that shouldn't have existed in the world. A man held a sledgehammer and chased after a running giant beast, which was already scarred. At this moment, a black figure suddenly appeared, and he waved his hands. A large amount of black air swept over him. The man quickly stopped and stood firm, but was repelled by this attack several meters away. "Monster, do you know what you're doing?" The man shouted at him, and the dark figure made a very eerie voice. "Of course I know, this is my mission." "Mission. Release this creature that disrupts the 3 realms." After speaking, the man looked at another man who was rushing to the side, holding a holy decree that emitted white light. "Holy envoy, you must go first and get rid of that evil beast." "Here I come." The man shouted, 8-leng holy hunting hammer, waving his hammer and smashing it towards the ground. A holy light instantly scattered the black shadow, and the holy envoy took the opportunity to rush over. After a while, the black shadow reappeared and appeared behind the man. "Be careful." Langyan Chengying mirror, a man holding a square mirror rushed to collect the black shadow. "Has the envoy left?" "Let's go." "That's good. We can't let that guy go, otherwise the 3 realms won't be peaceful." As soon as the words fell, the dark figure reappeared in front of the 2 of them. "You think this trick can catch me? You immortals are also overconfident, right? Cut, you can't leave here." "I'm not leaving, I should have come. After speaking, the dark figure bent down again and charged towards the 2 of them. Roll out." A man's rude voice echoed through the valley, and the sky began to pile up with large black clouds. The man was holding the glowing token tightly in his left hand, his sharp gaze flashing past every blade of grass and tree in front of him. Suddenly, lightning flashed and shone on the man's fierce face, illuminating his front. The man closed his eyes and captured all the movements around him. Although it was only for a moment, it was enough for the man. At this moment, the man's mouth had slightly raised, and he ran forward with his legs up. Even a tree several tens of feet tall was shattered by him, as if nothing could stop him. Finally, I found you, he said. The man was panting heavily, while in front of him was a fierce beast wrapped in black air, curled up on the ground, with grass and trees beside him stained with blue and black blood. It kept panting heavily, dripping the same amount of blood from its mouth, with only a pair of eyes glowing red as it stared fiercely at the man in front of it. The man didn't hesitate at all, waved the glowing token in his hand and rushed over. In no time, a white light shot straight into the sky, completely shattering the dark clouds. Then, the white light gradually became weak until it disappeared. And this empty land inexplicably grew several blue roses, swaying with the breeze, as if waiting for the arrival of some young man. Chapter 2. Debut. Campus Competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The gentle breeze soothes both sides of the Chimingshan River, and the warm sun brushes through the cracks in the tree branches. The fallen leaves quietly drift away, and the fishing song is melodious. The fallen leaves float with the waves and fall into the hands of the fisherman. Then, the fisherman swings his oars and heads towards the direction of Yisha village, in capital letters. The originally peaceful morning was shattered by a corner of the village. Pang, a woman with a red scarf wrapped around her head and a white cloth on her body, angrily pushed open the dilapidated door. Fonger, why are you making such a fuss without going to bed early in the morning? If you don't have the strength, go help your dad with his work. The young man in front of him scratched his hair, pouted, and jumped off the table, pointing to the window and the candy cake on the table. He said in frustration and anger, I don't know where the bobcat came from, dare to come and steal my candy cake. Mom smiled and said, isn't it just a piece of candy cake? I love it, so my mom will buy it for you. As Yifeng was busy putting on his shoes, he replied, you don't need to buy it. This is not an ordinary candy cake. This little cloud girl gave it to me. Don't miss Xiaoyun. If you still lose to Xiumu in your practice today, Xiaoyun will run away with them. A voice came from outside the window. Yifeng calmly jumped out of the window and saw the young man in front of him, wrapped in a feather scarf, dressed in animal clothing, with a short sword pinned to his waist and a short bow slung over his shoulder. He smiled and said, Yi Zheng. Are you dressed up to attend any performance? On the side, I'm going to accompany my dad to hunt in the mountains. Hurry up and go to Uncle Hu's place to practice martial arts. I completed the task he assigned last week, and if it's too slow, you'll have to work in the fields. After saying that, Yi Zheng waved his hand and walked towards the outside of the courtyard. Don't worry, it's not like winning Xiumu and not going home for dinner. Feng shouted loudly. I'm late again, Yifeng. Next time I'm late, I'll go to the mountains to fetch water. Do you understand? A burly man with a tiger back and a bare waist stood in front of Yifeng. All right, I got it, Uncle Hu. Stand over there. Hu Jun gave Yifeng a kick, and Yifeng walked unsteadily towards the team. Hu Jun is a butcher in the village, full of brute force. He has been learning martial arts and spells since childhood and is also the captain of the village's guards. He teaches the children in the village to practice martial arts every day, hoping to make contributions to the village in the future. Hu Jun's son Hu Qiu passed the martial arts examination and joined the army in Peicheng, becoming a member of the Knights. Hu Jun gave a symbolic sob and shouted, Come on, I want to see the results of your cultivation this week. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiumu said, Teacher Hu, I'll come. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked his left foot and quickly pulled out his iron sword from his waist with his right hand. A python flipped over in the air, and after landing, another stab was made with its tail. His movements flowed like clouds and water, and everyone applauded and exclaimed. Yifeng didn't think it was any big deal, but seeing the admiring gaze from Xiaoyun beside him, Yifeng naturally felt unhappy in his heart. We can't let this kid take the lead, Feng thought to himself. After repairing the wood, Yi Feng kicked his long spear into the air with his foot, grabbed it in the air, and then played a set of moon-watching horses. After landing, he spun a few more laps, paused for a second, and quickly swept the ground with his gun, rolling up the fallen leaves and dust. With one move, his spear was stained with flowers, and the tip of the spear was particularly beautiful in the sunlight. The stones beside him were shattered by the gunfire. Chapter 3. Getting Lost. Surprisingly discovering the demon cat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yi Feng walked on the forest path with a listless expression on his face. This path was not unfamiliar to him. He often went to the mountains to pick fruits and eat when he was young, but today it was surprisingly quiet, with only the faint sound of his feet crushing fallen leaves in his ears. Yi Feng didn't care at all. All he could think of was the scene of the confrontation just now. He thought that if he had been faster, harder, and played according to Uncle Hu's routine, it might not have been possible. Thinking that he was too engrossed, little did he know that he had already passed the place where Fulian grew, but he still didn't realize it. He kept walking, where is this? Yi Feng suddenly woke up, looking around at the tall trees and rocks blocking the sunlight. The grass was as dark as ink, and several bright blue roses stood neatly around. Yi Feng looked up and it seemed a bit eerie. He suddenly remembered that Uncle Hu had once said that there were mountain demons lurking here, and they had been ambushed by an unknown Taoist. Since he has been ambushed, there shouldn't be anything wrong, Yi Feng thought to himself. No, I'm here to pick lotus trees. There's no lotus here. I won't get lost, will I? If I can't walk well and go out to play, it will be embarrassing. Yi Feng stomped his foot anxiously. Suddenly, something in front of him seemed to be shining, blocked by the bushes, and there seemed to be some mysterious force luring him over. Yi Feng curiously walked over to take a look. When he walked to the location of the shining place, he didn't notice anything, just as Yi Feng was puzzled. Suddenly, Maple's head was in pain as if it had been burned by the fire. He forced himself to hold on, but with a burst of tinnitus, he still collapsed. Yi Feng seemed to hear someone's call in his dream, and he kept chasing after them. Where is this? Why am I here? Yi Feng suddenly woke up and found himself lying on a stone. To his right was a small stream, and the sound of water filled the pond forest. He suddenly remembered the competition of picking lotus flowers, and slowly got up but was surprised to find a bobcat next to him, whose eyes were filled with black energy. Yi Feng remembered the morning and the failure of the martial arts competition, and he wanted to pour all his dissatisfaction onto it. Yi Feng kicked the bobcat sideways, but the bobcat easily dodged. It's quite a bit, little kitten, Yi Feng said with a smile. Suddenly, Yi Feng furrowed his brows and noticed that the bobcat in front of him was a bit different. Its eyes suddenly emitted a green light, and its face began to look ferocious. Its claws and legs gradually grew larger, and the white hair behind it also turned black. It grew long sideburns and emitted foul-smelling saliva from its mouth. This is not a bobcat. It's clearly a cat demon. Yi Feng finally regained his composure and ran without thinking. Unfortunately, he didn't work hard in practicing martial arts and couldn't use the flash several times, so he had to grit his teeth and run. The cat demon shook its body and let out a loud roar. All the birds in the forest were shaken away, and its hind legs bounced fiercely out. What's going on over there? Yi Jing asked Uncle Hu. I have a bad feeling. Take the iron sword and go see if it might be Yi Feng. Uncle Hu stood up from the wooden stake and headed towards the forest. Not long after, Yi Feng was caught up by the cat demon. Since you can't run away, you can only use force to conquer you, Yi Feng shouted loudly. In fact, Yi Feng was very afraid in his heart. He knew he was not a match for the cat demon, but he had to face it. He could only pray for someone to save him. The cat demon's tail curved, and its paws made a mark on the ground, shooting like an arrow. Yi Feng turned around and punched the cat demon's abdomen again, but it seemed to have no effect. After the cat demon landed, it quickly turned around. Yifeng stepped on the tree next to him and rose into the air. The cat demon smashed the several-meter-high tree with one head. Yifeng was frightened into a cold sweat and didn't carry any weapons on his body. It was only because he was too impulsive and forgot to take a knife before rushing up the mountain. Yifeng understood that his current regret was also of no use, so he turned around and ran towards the direction of the village. Suddenly, the cat demon flashed towards him, and a flash rushed towards him. Yifeng didn't have time to dodge and kicked the cat demon's head fiercely with his foot. He also flew back and slid a few meters on the ground. Yifeng knew very well that whether facing monsters or tigers, he must not lie on the ground, otherwise the other party would lose their life with a fierce attack. Yifeng hurriedly stood up too slowly. The cat demon roared, and Yifeng was so scared that he closed his eyes and muttered, "Brother Zheng, Uncle Hu, I'm going to fall here today. You should take good care of yourself, take good care of your parents." Chapter 4. Escaping the Siege. Fighting the Demon Cat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A rough voice suddenly came from ahead. "What nonsense! With Uncle Hu around, you won't be fine." Yifeng opened his eyes and saw that the person in front of him was actually Hu Jun. The cat demon glared fiercely at the burly man in front of him, his murderous aura making the cat demon a bit afraid. Suddenly, a sword flew over and was about to touch the cat demon. The cat demon quickly twisted its head, but the sword remained impartial and inserted into the cat demon's left paw. A figure suddenly rushed over and stepped on the head of the cat demon. A somersault pulled out the sword and drew a perfect arc in the air. The cat demon let out a loud cry and took a few steps back, only then did the figure fall to Maple and see clearly that the person was Nightshang. "Uncle Hu, don't go up. I'll kill this beast," Yizheng said and quickly rushed forward. "Didn't Yizheng go hunting with his father? Why are we with you?" Yifeng asked Uncle Hu. They had already returned. "I saw that you hadn't come back after going to the mountains for a few hours and didn't bring any weapons. Yizheng was worried, so he called me to go find them together." "As expected, what bad things did you do?" "You provoked a cat demon, but fortunately it was just a beast. If you had already cultivated into a human form, we might not be able to sustain him enough." Uncle Hu clenched his machete and said to Yifeng. I don't know. He suddenly came out." Yifeng lowered his head and stuttered. Nightshang flashed behind the demon cat in an instant, and before the demon cat could react, he cut off its tail with a knife. The demon cat let out a loud cry, then turned around and pounced. Nightshang used his sword to swipe past one side of the demon cat's body, leaving a bright red knife mark on its abdomen. Yizheng waved his sword, scattered the blood on it, and suddenly took off to encounter the demon cat in the sky. The demon cat was about to dodge Zheng when it flashed behind it. I saw Zheng holding onto the head of the demon cat with one hand, and as he was about to stab it with his sword, the demon cat suddenly had purple eyes and was surrounded by black air around its body. Nightshang was directly charged away by the black air. Before Nightshang could get up, the demon cat bounced over with one paw after another, and Zheng quickly rolled on the ground. The demon cat smashed the nearby trees and stones to pieces, and the small grass on the side was crushed by the impact force. Yizheng quickly stood up, and the demon cat leaped into the air with a heavy blow towards Yizheng. Yizheng used an iron sword to block it, but was easily grabbed and broken by the demon cat. At the critical moment, Hu Jun kicked the demon cat on the head, and the demon cat rolled around a few times before quickly getting up. Hu Jun swung his machete straight at the demon cat, who flashed back. Hu Jun then made a close cut, and the demon cat leaped into the tree. Hu Jun dared not attack recklessly, but put on a good posture and slowly retreated. Nightshang immediately took out his bow and arrow, intending to launch a surprise attack on the demon cat from behind. Unexpectedly, the demon cat spotted him. The demon cat made a ghostly step towards Nightjang and split his arrow with one claw. Nightjang took advantage of the situation and kicked back. The demon cat suddenly opened its big mouth, spitting out evil spirits from its mouth. Nightjang dodged back, but was still hit. Yizheng let out a scream and rolled on the ground in pain, but couldn't shake it off. Suddenly, a huge fireball flew over and hit the head of the demon cat, blinding its left eye. He covered his left eye and ran around, looking very embarrassed. "This is not an ordinary demon cat," Hu Jun said solemnly. After saying that, he reached out to grab Yizheng, but was injured by the black gas wrapped outside. Hu Jun took a deep breath, and a huge flame of fire method. Burning clouds erupted from his mouth. After a moment, the thick smoke dissipated, and Yizheng lay on the ground covered in injuries. Hu Jun looked at the demon cat in front of him and suddenly frowned, his eyes shining red. He threw away his machete, clenched his fists, and shouted loudly, "Fire method! Fire Yuan Qian!" I saw him transform into a blazing flame and flash like a demon cat, approaching him with lightning speed. With a heavy punch, he hooked the demon cat's left face and smashed it into the soil. With a heavy punch, he grabbed the demon cat's neck and threw it into the air, accumulating strength and striking it straight towards its abdomen. The intensity of this operation was so great that the demon cat was knocked off the opposite rock wall without even making a sound. The rocks on the rock wall buried the demon cat underneath. "It seems it's over," Hu Jun patted his body and said to Yifeng. Chapter 5. Chimingshan Taoist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Suddenly, a faint fragrance wafted through the air. Yifeng turned around and saw a young man with a jade tree facing the wind, dressed in a military green cloak, with a sword pinned to his waist and a jade pendant tied to the scabbard. There is a wooden flute tied to the left foot, and a jade ring is also strung around the flute body. I saw the young man with slender eyelashes, a delicate face, and a clean face covered in sunlight. Yifeng was frightened by the young man in front of him and quickly asked, "Young master, who are you?" The young man walked straight from Feng's side and said, "Chimingshan Taoist, a member of the Wood clan, Alan. What are you doing here?" Yifeng chased after him. "I met a hunter descending the mountain at the foot of the mountain. The hunter told me that there was a demon fighting against you on the mountain. He was looking for help descending the mountain, and I also realized that the demon was extraordinary, so I came up." "Haha, this demon does have two moves, but it has already been easily dealt with by my uncle Hu," Yifeng said proudly. "Well, I don't think so," the young man gestured to Feng to look at the stone pile across from him. Suddenly, the pile of stones was washed away. "Uncle Hu, be careful!" Yifeng shouted. At this moment, a huge rock rushed towards the Hu army, who smashed it with a punch. However, the demon cat came towards them, and the Hu army couldn't dodge in time and was knocked down by a head. The demon cat pounced on Hu Jun and opened its bloody mouth straight towards his throat. Hu Jun instinctively grabbed the neck of the demon cat to prevent it from approaching, and a strong stench almost suffocated him. Alan flashed in front of the demon cat in an instant, "Xiao Xiang, I'll meet you." After finishing, he kicked the demon cat into the air with a flying knee kick, and another series of leg kicks were graceful and agile. The demon cat was beaten up and down, and suddenly became furious. Its black aura surged into the sky, and then it pounced and grabbed at Alan, but was easily picked up by Alan. Alan threw it out of the air, then gathered her vitality in her heart and jumped into the air. Mu Ling Gui Chun Xiang. After finishing speaking, the powder in the palm of my hand scattered out, and many flying powders shimmered in the sunlight, like elves. "Ah, it's really fragrant," Feng took a strong sip and said. But next, his face turned pale, his limbs seemed to be taken away by some force, and he collapsed on the ground. Alan took out a wooden bottle from her cloak and threw it at Yifeng. "This is the antidote, just take one pill," she said, slowly walking towards the demon cat. The demon cat lay on the ground, seemingly unable to move. Upon seeing this, Alan took out his sword, whose reflected light could even reach the foot of the mountain. What a precious sword! Hu Jun couldn't help but sigh. Alan was about to stab the demon cat when the cat suddenly pounced on him, with a paw straight at Alan's face. Alan grabbed her and said, "It's a bit interesting. After being hit by my ghost Chimingshan, she's still so energetic. It seems that you're the demon soul my master said. You're right. We can't underestimate you anymore." Just as Ko finished speaking, the demon cat suddenly knocked Alan over and wanted to pounce. Alan immediately reacted and kicked him away a few meters away. Alan slapped the ground with his palm and shouted, "Mu Ling, Tinghua." Suddenly, many vines appeared next to the demon cat, strangling it tightly. The poisonous thorns on the vine were deeply embedded in the body of the demon cat. The demon cat screamed but couldn't break free, so it spat out a more violent evil soul from its mouth and laughed at Alan. Alan didn't dodge but took a deep breath, said Muling Chunhua. I saw huge dust mixed with flowers and leaves spraying out of his mouth, and the vitality of both sides collided in the air, with the sound echoing through the mountains and forests. The shockwave broke the nearby trees, and Maple, who had just taken the antidote, felt a bit unstable. It's truly a demon soul, with such strong vitality that I can't handle it anymore, Alan thought to herself. The demon cat suddenly experienced a surge in vitality, with evil spirits surging in like a tide. This was a collision of powers. I saw Alan raise her hands and absorb all the essence of the plants, flowers, and fruits next to her. Suddenly, a huge vortex appeared around Alan, and the strong airflow directly lowered the elemental pressure of the demon cat. Alan made his final blow, and with a loud bang, smoke surged above the forest, and the once dense jungle was also flattened. The villagers in the distance were also stunned, standing on the hillside and looking into the distance. It shouldn't be so easy to get rid of it, we can't let our guard down, Alan thought to herself. He gently waved his sword and said, Mu Ling Lu Yi Dao. After speaking, the sword emitted a green light. But not long after, the demon cat made a ghostly step towards Alan, who didn't even react. The demon cat quickly grabbed it, and Alan quickly blocked it with a sword, but it was still knocked away several meters away. As soon as it landed, the demon cat dived over, while Alan turned around and slashed, directly hitting the demon cat's chest, with blood gushing out. But the demon cat seemed to be fine, turning its head and pawing straight towards Alan's face. Alan used a sword to resist, but the demon cat suddenly opened its big mouth and a huge hand sprayed out from its mouth. Alan was startled by the scene before her and dodged into the sky for an instant. However, this hand actually caught up, and at the moment when Alan was about to be touched by the giant hand, she flashed behind the demon cat in an instant. Sample, look at the sword. Alan fiercely inserted his sword into the back of the demon cat, then kicked it out and pulled it out, then flipped over and landed in the air with a clean and agile movement. What shocked him was that the demon cat seemed to be okay. No, this thing is evolving. From before until now, its vitality has been increasing, its moves have been increasing, and its level of awakening has been increasing. If this continues, I'm afraid I won't be its opponent anymore. There's nothing I can do, I can only use that move, Alan thought to herself. But in that moment, the demon cat actually pounced. Be careful, Taoist. Yi Feng shouted in the distance, but was unable to save the situation. Yi Feng saw with his own eyes that Alan was torn apart by a claw, her flesh and blood blurred, while Alan collapsed to the ground expressionless. But when Yi Feng looked closely again, it was the scarecrow who fell to the ground. Yi Feng's face was full of doubts and he could only stare blankly. Suddenly, 6 Alan appeared next to the demon cat, with their necks and arms bulging with veins. The demon cat looked at this situation and was at a loss, so it could only keep roaring. 6 Alan suddenly shouted, Piyuf Lu Zhang Shen Sha. 6 swords pierced straight into the demon cat's body, and suddenly a huge green light surged out of the demon cat's body. The sunlight from the sky also shone on the demon cat at the same time. After several seconds, the demon cat completely disappeared, and Alan suddenly fainted on the ground. Chapter 6. Black Shadow. Mysterious Hill and Fortress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alan opened his eyes and found himself lying in bed. He slowly got up, put on his clothes, and got off. There was no one in the room. The house was built of wood and stone, which was a bit dilapidated but very tidy. Small dolls were also neatly arranged on the window next to the door. He pushed the door open and looked into the beautiful mountains in the distance, taking a deep breath of fresh air. The distant sparrow suddenly startled and took off towards the east. An old crow followed the sparrow's procession, but then turned deeper into the mountain at the mouth of the Chimingshan River. It flew and stayed in a black forest, where the miasma seemed like a natural barrier. At the center of the forest, there is a mountain fortress with the words, Qiu He Zhai, written in capital letters, report to the master, the spirit of the demon soul has disappeared in Yusha village. A soldier wearing wooden armor reported to the person sitting on a square chair made of red iron. I saw the man wearing a black windbreaker, a patterned mask, and blood-red eyes that made people shudder. What? Disappeared. Let's go find the demon soul. It's been found now, but it's gone. What's the use of it for you, a bunch of trash? After he finished speaking, he stomped on the ground with his foot and rushed towards him with a burst of energy. The soldiers cut him off with their backs. Someone, drag him down and feed him to the lower demon. After speaking, 2 soldiers crawled out of the ground and slowly walked over. At this moment, a dark figure appeared. After all these years of hard searching, it's finally over. The figure covered its face, lost its legs, and floated in the air, surrounded by cold air, slowly speaking. Surprisingly, he was taken one step ahead. That beam of light should be the technique of breaking the language of Chimingshan. It seems that he is a Taoist of Chimingshan. Yusha village is really a crouching tiger with hidden dragons. The leader finished speaking and looked at the dark figure. What should we do now? The demon spirit has been destroyed, and our plans have been disrupted, said the leader. The black shadow remained silent, only spitting out a black mist and silently reciting a few spells. A young man's figure slowly appeared in the mist, holding a long spear and wearing a cloak on his shoulder, looking very graceful. However, the next second dissipated and disappeared. No, things are definitely not that simple. The demon soul, which I have been waiting for over a decade, must still be somewhere because I saw it. The dark figure finished speaking, and the big boss looked shocked. Did you see it? What? At the moment of his birth, I tied a fate lock around him. I could see that he was being suppressed by some force, but one day, this ancient power would erupt. I had put my life as a gamble on him, and I hope he can rewrite the fate of our earthly lives. After Black Shadow finished speaking, the leader also fell silent. He looked at his hands and said, Fate. He was constantly pondering these 2 simple yet profound words in his heart. You think we live in darkness, but little do you know that at the moment when the demon altar falls, the entire realm is shrouded in darkness, continued the shadow. So what about the altar? Asked the daimyo. You are just an ordinary person, you don't understand, you don't need to understand. This is a dispute in the realm of gods and demons. You just need to remember the contract between us at the beginning. After Black Shadow finished speaking, it turned into black smoke and dissipated. Contract. The big boss suddenly frowned. Yes, I'm just an ordinary person. I just need to fulfill my wishes. Yusha village, it's interesting, my good neighbor. It seems like it's time to meet you. After speaking, he stood up suddenly, and the sky was filled with wind and clouds, blocking the sun. Chapter 7. Gongzi. Young Master of Hongming Mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alan had just taken a few steps towards the door when he ran into Yizheng, who was sharpening his knife for Alan. Yizheng looked up and saw Alan. He immediately knelt down and said, "Thank you, benefactor, for saving your life." Alan was a bit caught off guard and immediately bent down to help him up. At this moment, Yi Feng and Hu Jun, who were not far away, also rushed over. "Are you okay? It's been a whole day since you were unconscious." Yi Feng looked at Alan and said, "It's okay, I'm fine," Alan responded with a smile. "But your vitality?" Hu Jun said again. At this moment, Alan realized that his energy was very weak and his energy was very weak. After using 6 zhang of divine injury, his body was overloaded. Alan said helplessly, "I need to trim it for a while." "Well." Feng didn't finish speaking, and Dad and the villagers all came. The hero woke up. Suddenly, a child shouted and ran towards the village. "It's really different. So young, my magic isn't as advanced yet. If my son were so excellent, his dreams would be sweet. Too handsome. With such a hero, our village won't be afraid of being bullied in the future." Looking at Hu Jun with a stern face and then at the villagers outside the courtyard, he muttered softly, "What? Even uncle who helped me beat the demon cat. Benefactor." Dad shouted as he ran. "Thank you, great Xia. If it weren't for you, our children would have suffered." After finishing speaking, he grabbed Hu Jun's hand and said, "Old Hu, thank you very much for sacrificing your life to help. Come to my house for a meal these days. I have good wine and good meat to fill my stomach. You're really polite, brother Changlin. We've all known each other for a long time now." "Don't say these words," Hu Jun patted Yi Changlin's shoulder and said. "Uncle, you're welcome. I just pulled out my sword to help when I encountered injustice on the road. This is my Taoist's responsibility," Alan said to Yi Changlin. "May I ask where the Taoist is, young Xia?" Yi Changlin asked after him. "I am a Taoist from Xuanjiang east to Chiming Mountain, which is 50 miles away. I studied under Taoist Hua Yuan and have been practicing Buddhism for 5 years. I am 16 years old this year." 16 years old. Yi Feng shouted, "Brother Zheng is the same age as you." Yi Zheng smiled lightly and pointed to the earring on the scabbard, saying, "It's really a good jade pendant. What does the word Hongming above mean?" Alan hesitated for a moment and said, "I was originally the second son of the current head of Hongming Mansion in Ziyuan City, Wuzhou. Later, I left home and went up the mountain to become a Taoist." Hongming Mansion. Isn't that the head of the 3 famous mansions? It turned out to be the eldest son, who was impolite and disrespectful. Why not go up the mountain to become a Taoist instead of being a young master? Yi Changlin quickly asked, "This matter is a long story. 10 years ago, during the Great Protectorate Reform, the imperial capital, the Grand Minister of Agriculture, Emperor Chu, changed the rural system and abolished the old 4 major county plans based on folk culture. The plan was changed to focus on Changzhou, Dezhou, Wuzhou, Jiangzhou, and the 5 major regions of the imperial capital, with 20 cities and villages spontaneously established by the people. Later, warehouse management offices were established in each state to oversee the flow of goods between states and the autonomy of the states. The governors of each state were appointed by Emperor Jiuqi, the head of the Imperial Capital Hall Regiment, and were conferred titles such as: the governor of Changzhou was led by Emperor Ting Kuei, the commander-in-chief of the Minghu prefecture of the 3 regiments. The governor of Dezhou was led by Emperor Ming, the commander of the Dragon Clan, who was in charge of the Sichuan Jin Mansion under the 5 regiments of Blade and Blade. The governor of Wuzhou was led by the commander of the 9 regiments Xinji Regiment, Hongming Mansion, and a member of the Mu tribe named Ai Air. The governor of Jiangzhou was led by Hao Juan, a member of the Wind Clan, who was the commander of the 8th Regiment's Jianxiu Regiment, Jiushang Prefecture. Moreover, the commander-in-chief of each state adopts a hereditary system of inheritance. Each state can issue laws to govern its own military, and the governor of the imperial capital is appointed by General Wei, Emperor Heng. The deployment of each state can be arranged spontaneously, and all cities must present documents for passage. Those who violate the order will be expelled. Chapter 8. Meridians. The source of magic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What conditions are needed to be a team leader? Feng suddenly asked. Alan smiled and said, each of us has a primordial spirit in our body, which is the source of our power. The power of the 5 elements that our primordial spirit can control varies according to our family bloodline. Through the awakening of the primordial spirit, it connects elements and pulses, and is released in the form of primordial energy, also known as magic. But once the primordial energy is formed, it will continuously surge out, so the primordial spirit will independently block its power. Therefore, predecessors have come up with a set of lifting prohibitions. The fire technique of the fire tribe, the water catkins of the water tribe, the wind curse of the wind tribe, the earth escape of the earth tribe, the thunder determination of the thunder tribe, and the dragon chant of the dragon tribe. The divine race is born from the extreme energy of the universe, and its power comes from 3 divine realm cult leaders, namely the 3 great Dharma guard leaders. Mingfa guard leader, Jingfa guard leader, and Lingfa guard leader, who respectively manage the power of 3 different systems. Demons are born from the chaotic black energy of the universe. Their power comes from the power obtained from their own bloodline, and they can be awakened through experience. They can also learn spells of 5 common elements and transform them to form new spells. The channel that connects the primordial spirit is also known as the meridian. According to the strength of the transported primordial energy, the meridian is roughly divided into 10 levels. When the meridian is above level 6, the door can be opened, which greatly increases the speed of primordial energy transportation in the body and can instantly increase the strength of spells and martial arts. Whether the door can be opened is also the standard for whether one can become a team leader. How do you know what level of meridians you have? Yijing asked. This is very simple. First, you need to systematically learn spells. Before the words could be finished, a large group of villagers rushed in and shouted loudly, "Hero, Hero AI. Let's send you some gifts." Alan looked at them and saw each villager holding something to eat. Nightjing quickly called out to the villagers when suddenly a few children ran to Alan's side and asked, "Hero, will you stay in the village all this time? Hero, will you teach me magic in the future?" As soon as she finished speaking, a few aunties arrived and drove away the children, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Hero. Children don't understand, don't mind." Then she turned to the children and said, "Silly child, Hero will definitely stay in the village." Alan just smiled awkwardly but didn't answer. Upon seeing the situation, Yijing immediately said, Yingxiong's body has not fully recovered yet, so he needs to go inside to rest. Then he helped Ai Lan into the room. Heroes. The villagers were still shouting outside, their voices spreading further and further, and it wasn't until a few minutes later that they calmed down. "I don't like occasions with too many people," Alan said coldly. "I can see it now." Yijing smiled and patted Alan's shoulder. "How exactly do I open the meridians? I want to see how many levels Uncle Hu's meridians are." Yifeng closed the door and walked in. "Silly child, Uncle Hu, I can open meridians." Hu Jun said with a smile, took a deep breath, placed his hands on his chest, and closed his eyes. Suddenly, his body became transparent, and there were 2 glowing objects next to his heart. "The second-level meridians are quite powerful," Alan said. "You know how to open meridians, why don't you teach us magic?" Yijing asked. "In fact, the spells I practiced were self-taught by a Taoist, so I don't know how to teach them. I can only teach martial arts hand in hand." Hu Jun said helplessly. "Can you teach us magic, young Master Lan?" Feng asked. "No, you're from the Fire Clan and I'm from the Wood Clan." According to theory, the 5 elements cannot be connected, and in the future, just call me Alan. What would happen if the 8th level meridian is activated? Hu Jun asked. The 8th level meridian can activate Taihua, concretizing all one's potential talents. I am not sure about the specific content of the 10th level meridian, which can only be activated by gods and demons. Does joining the army also require opening meridians? Feng quickly asked. Joining the army requires 1st level meridians, said Alan. How can we open the meridians? Yi Feng seemed a bit anxious. We need to learn spells first. Although I can't teach you directly, I can teach you luck. The rest is up to you, Alan replied. Chapter 9. The Legend of Demon Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Where are you planning to go now? Auntie came in carrying tea. The master called us to go down the mountain to pursue the demon soul, and now the demon soul's essence has been destroyed, but we don't know if it is its true form, so we need to report the situation up the mountain and continue our cultivation, said Alan while drinking tea. Is that the legendary demon soul? Yi Jing asked with widened eyes. What kind of demon soul? Yi Feng interjected. Alan cleared his throat. More than 400 years ago, in a war between gods and demons, the demon king Yuan Chong was enslaved. In order to save him, the demon king gathered 100 top-notch demons and offered sacrifices every tens or even hundreds of years to exchange for the demon king's magical power to reappear. The demon king then cast spells to split the original gods and become the demon soul. The demon soul would autonomously attach itself to humans or animals, and those who were sent there were called soul elements. Soul elements can gain amazing power and extraordinary vitality, but they are prone to losing their sanity when erupted, and the demon king can easily regain their power and even life. Therefore, soul elements have been fighting to save the demon king since their birth. More than 200 years ago, the first-generation Soul Yuan Hefuli was jointly annihilated by the Grand General of the imperial capital Xinghua, Emperor Wuhou, and the divine Chaotian cavalry general Xingluo, as well as more than 20 Taoist priests, and was sealed in the kingdom of Wali. Emperor Wuhou and Xingluo were severely injured and died as a result. The whereabouts of the second-generation Soul Yuan are unknown after causing a great disturbance in Jinding Mountain, while the third-generation Soul Yuan is said to be one of the 3 great marshals of the Wali kingdom. Due to the fact that the lifespan of the soul element is on par with that of the demon king, if the demon clan is not completely eradicated, the number of soul elements will also increase, and the demon king will be closer and closer to being seen again. The demon soul was very weak and contained incredibly powerful power when it first came into the world and did not merge. Therefore, many people wanted to seize the opportunity to seize the power of the demon soul. A few days ago, the demon cat was not a soul element, but was infected with the power of the demon soul. The true soul element may have already merged, or perhaps it has not yet reappeared in the human world. According to my master, decades ago, the 4th-generation demon soul was released by one of the 12 demons, Fu Yao. However, Fu Yao was ambushed by 2 captains of the divine dynasty. However, the 4th-generation demon soul escaped and has been missing for a long time. My master told me that when the demon soul spirit disappeared, it was near the back mountain of Yusha village, and I only came here. Just a little bit of demonic soul power is so powerful. How powerful is that soul element? Yi Feng exclaimed. The strength of soul elements lies not only in their own magical energy, but also in their extraordinary learning talents. Moreover, soul elements are the only earthly creatures that can link to the magic altar, which in turn connects soul elements with numerous strong followers. Therefore, all previous soul elements have a group of strong followers, and even if they die, new followers will come. Alan said again. So your goal is to kill the soul element and the demon clan? Yi Jing asked. That's right, the Jin kingdom and the Yao clan, especially the Yao clan led by the 12 demons in the Xianyan realm, engage in battles of all sizes all year round. The demons need to obtain human essence to strengthen their magic power and be selected as the 12 demons. The weaker demons will be killed by humans, and the Yao heart has a healing effect. The stronger the demon, the stronger its healing function of the Yao heart is. Not only can it enhance its magic power, but it can also increase its lifespan. Alan replied. This way, it seems that our world is not peaceful either. Yi Feng covered his head and said. Yi Jing suddenly pointed to another wooden flute on Alan's waist, with a jade ring embedded on it. The workmanship was very exquisite, and he asked, "Isn't it that Lan Gu is also good at playing this wooden flute?" Alan fell silent for a moment and said, "I'm not very good at it, and it's not mine either. It's for a little Taoist." "Little Taoist? Why are you here?" Yi Feng said as he looked at the wooden flute. "This. We have to start from what happened when I was a child." Alan closed her eyes, and the long-forgotten memories returned to her mind. Chapter 10. Noble Young Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I am the 67th generation descendant of the legitimate family of Hongming Prefecture. My grandfather doted on me very much and devoted a lot of energy to me since I was born. At the age of 6, the imperial capital was reformed by the Grand Minister of Agriculture. My older brother, Iron Yen, became the commander-in-chief of the state at the age of only 19, and the commander-in-chief was connected by the hereditary Zong clan. I was also the second son, and the Zong clan held a higher position than my elder brother's son, which meant that the next commander-in-chief of the state was me. As a result, my whole family showed great care for me, and my identity and status were also strictly required. For example, if I accidentally bump into my servant, I will be imprisoned in the mansion. If I don't bow, I will be kicked out of the mansion. If any servant harms me, he will also be doomed. Once, while catching butterflies in the courtyard, I accidentally bumped into an old gardener who was watering the flowers. The gardener was kind to me and often brought interesting insects, but I ran very fast and fell to the ground, rubbing my skin and bleeding. When the old gardener saw this, he threw a sprinkling bottle of water and helped me up. Then, he quickly knelt down to forgive me. I didn't think there was anything to do. Just as I was about to get him up, 2 guards suddenly rushed over and pressed the old gardener to the ground. At the same time, a squad leader from the Due camp appeared behind me and immediately knelt down on one knee, saying, "My subordinates deserve to die for their sins, causing the young master to suffer flesh and skin. I will act according to the law." After finishing speaking, I ordered the guards to take the old gardener away. The old gardener looked at me with a frightened expression on his face. From his eyes, I saw unwillingness and pleading. I immediately ordered to stop, but the captain quickly knelt down and shouted, "Young Master Lan, this is the master's order. If we don't execute it, we will also be punished." I saw this and had no choice but to let them take it away, while my hands seemed to be covered in blood at that moment. Because of my high status, my grandfather built a super-large mansion for me alone. If a servant's child accidentally enters, he can cut off his legs in severe cases and throw out a stick in light cases. Therefore, I am always alone. In this huge mansion, I walk aimlessly all day long, and when I leave, my grandfather is afraid that I will be sunburned, so I have to wrap myself tightly when I go out. My grandfather must have also noticed my thoughts. In order to make me happy, he even spent a lot of money on toys and accessories that only emperors and princes could use, but I am still unhappy. Later, my mother got to know me and proposed to invite a few friends to play with me. My grandfather also agreed for the first time, so he invited the daughter of the lord of Baishu city across the Panjiang River to accompany me. The city lord was very pleased to hear about this matter and was willing to send over 1,000 people, carrying hundreds of taels of gold, over 1,000 taels of silver, and more than 10 boxes of silk and jewelry, to personally write a letter to express his feelings. He also understood that if he climbed to Hongming Prefecture, he would have climbed to Wuzhou. His grandfather was also happy and reduced his city tariffs by 20%, which was much more cost-effective than gold and silver. I am also curious and happy to hear this news. What is the momentum of the gift-giving team of over 1,000 people? What does a noble princess look like? So he made a request to his grandfather to go out and play on the street. Although my grandfather refused, he still agreed under my persuasion. He only sent 4 or 5 burly men to protect me, but their foolish appearance didn't take long to leave the mansion and I threw them away. I ran like a wild horse in the alley, coming to the market where there were a sea of people, various snacks mixed together, and young people performing arts, making the knife and stick extremely cool.